Oh, hey, before we roll the interview, you should know that it was super glitchy, even by Zoom standards. So there are going to be a lot of odd cuts and jumps and freezes. Normally we would have just dumped the video because what's a mess. But this one's kind of one of those once in a lifetime interviews that shows at our level wouldn't normally get. So please excuse the technical difficulties and enjoy our chat with Madeleine Smithberg. To paraphrase my favorite fictional sportscaster, Sports Night's Casey McCall, if you have half as much fun watching the interview as we had doing the interview, then we had twice as much fun doing the interview as you'll have watching it. Enjoy. Welcome back. Our guest today, in a very important way, inspired me to want to become a satirical news show host. So we'll start with our standard question: who you, what's do, and why?
My name is Madeleine Smithberg, and I'm probably best known as being the co-creator and original showrunner of The Daily Show. But I recently have taken a career pivot, and I am the host of a YouTube cooking channel. And the reason I do it, and the reason I comedy was the same, because I feel the passion both for comedy and for food.
All right. Is there anything you're working on right now that you'd like to tell our audience about?
Yes, I would. As a matter of fact, it's my YouTube channel. It's called Mad in the Kitchen. And if you go to YouTube and search Mad in the Kitchen, you will see all of my videos. And I would like to beg your audience to like the videos and, more importantly, to subscribe to my channel so I can pursue my this sort of late in life pivot and dream chasing, which has happened to me during the pandemic. I sort of try to make them funny. It's not like I've left comedy behind. I've just brought it with me, and now I'm feeding it literally, as well as feeding my lucky husband, who gets to eat all the food that I create for the channel.
Excellent. Sorry, in the background there, is that your Emmy and Peabodys you got over there? Wow.
This is the Emmy.
Dang.
She's very sharp. Ow! And she's really heavy. When they first gave it to me, I was like, whoa, give me two so I can balance it out. Otherwise, I'm going to have one giant arm. But that's the Emmy. And it's very beautiful and important. And then I've got two of these guys. These are the Peabody Awards from the University of Georgia. In some ways, even more prestigious, because the Peabody Award is a recognition of excellence from a school, and as well as the Emmy is just your peers congratulating you. So I'm very proud of all of those, and I'm also really proud of my cooking channel.
Yeah,
it's been an interesting ride.
Speaking of like cooking,
it's funny. They're funny.
Yeah. Are there any dishes that you would love to make but don't have the confidence or materials to try it yet? I personally want to learn to make tortillas, but I am not confident enough with working with dough in order to do it. So, do you have anything like that?
Actually, no. I mean, the thing about me is, for good and for bad, I do not know fear. It's sort of like I used to hear about babies that were born without this sense of feeling, and they would crawl all over glass and not know. And I've always thought that I was a little like them, that I've never, sort of thought, ooh, I can't do that. I really think more like, ooh, I'm going to try that. And then, especially with YouTube now, you can just look up a video and learn how to do it and do it. I'm not much of a baker, but it's not because of fear. Oh, yes, it is. It's fear of getting really fat. So I try not to bake because I would just eat it all.
That's what I'm
But
saying. It is very
no,
satisfying.
I've managed to really teach myself to do most things that you look like Elvis in space.
Oh, oh no, now it's just gonna be filled in the comments section. You're done. So, what's your favorite thing to make? Like your best comfort food type meal?
Comfort food for me is always pasta. I used to work for Italian TV. I studied abroad in Italy when I was in college. I worked for Italian TV for 6 years. My parents bought a little house in Tuscany, and I always have been drawn to the Italy and Italian food. And sometimes when I really need comfort, the only thing that will work is a bowl of pasta. And it's always just pasta with butter and cheese. And then when I'm serving it for people, I can't be that lazy. So I usually will embellish it with something like butternut squash or zucchini or eggplant or caramelized onions are so good. A little bacon, and then you're on your way to a carbonara. But there really is nothing like pasta for me in terms of just being the pure comfort food.
Yeah. I'd have to say my my best comfort food type meal is it's also pasta but in a less good way. Like it's something my dad and I always used to make, where it'd just be a can of tuna fish combined with macaroni and cheese. Just macaroni and cheese and tuna fish, ultimate comfort food.
There's nothing wrong with a good tuna casserole, tuna noodle
Yeah.
casserole. And by the way, one of my other comfort foods is a tuna melt.
Oh yeah.
And there are some days when I need a tuna melt. So I can totally see combining the mac and cheese and the tuna of it all. That sounds absolutely delicious to me.
Yeah.
Hey, you know what? All roads lead to Rome, and in especially when it comes to pasta, as long as you don't overcook it too much, it's really hard to mess it up and have it be not delicious.
So, what's your favorite old school cooking
I
tool?
swear you're on that SpaceX thing because I have a delay.
Well, the director's over there having a field day.
I am obsessed with my kitchen equipment, and the one that I really love the best are tongs. And I know it's not that exciting, but whenever I realize that I have to use tongs, I get really happy. And I do a little dance and I like sing a song. I have a special graphic on my video when it comes to tongs. I really like a meat tenderizer when you get to like bang on chicken and stuff like that. It's super fun, gets out a lot of your like yayas. I still love I just got a brand new baby Cuisinart. It's so cute. It's just a little baby, but it's pink, which is my signature color. And so I'm having a lot of fun with my little baby Cuisinart.
I have heard a theory that if one is like even relatively good at cooking and they have to use tongs, it is physically impossible to use tongs without clicking them a few times first. Will you concur?
It's impossible.
Yeah.
Okay,
Tot,
I
tot,
thought
tot,
so.
tot, tot, tot. It was my first TikTok. Like, because they're very similar to what are they, Marathis? The little thicker things, the da, 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 da.
Maracas?
And so yeah, you definitely can riff with your tongs. I don't like any of them. I'm not into the sous vide. I'm not into the Instapot. Although I think I would like to try it, but I really think I'm like, I'm old school in that I like to chop and then I want to cook. And if I'm cooking something that needs 6 hours to cook, I want it cooking, especially now that I'm not going anywhere ever. I like to be able to go over and stir it. I like something that roasts in the oven slowly for hours and just gets more and more flavorful. I'm not really into the sous vide and the air fryer and the I would take a panini press if someone wanted to give me one. That I could make really good use out of. But I'm less of a science of cooking and more of just I like to be kind of tactily and emotionally attached and involved with my food.
Hmm. I can understand that, but still, blasphemy! The Instant Pot is freaking amazing. Like, it helps so much. Like, I'm not
Is
sponsored by
it?
it, but I'd love to be.
I think I'm gonna play around with the Instapot. Once I make it through the holidays, I have a lot of stuff coming up right now. I'm doing 2 more TV appearances and a couple of holiday corporate Zoom cooking classes. And then I have 2 live shows that I've scheduled. One is I'm having a pizza party at my chef friend Julie's Pizza Oven on December 5th at 6 o'clock Pacific time. And she's gonna be teaching me how to make the perfect pizza. And I booked a house band for it. And we're doing it outside, so we're allowed to do it and it's safe. And then 2 weeks later, on the 19th, a Cajun chef named Jameel Johnson is teaching me how to make jambalaya. And
Oh,
then
yeah.
I will go to Mexico for 10 days, and I can't wait as long as the flights aren't grounded.
All right. Since you mentioned the holiday season, what's your favorite holiday-based meal to make?
My heart is a little broken right now because it's the first Thanksgiving since he was born that I will not be with my son Harrison. He's in college too. He's at Chico State in Northern California, and he can't come here because he goes to a party school. And my husband doesn't want that brought into our home, and I guess I understand, but my heart is broken. So what I was gonna say was last year I made a sick turkey. I brined it for 2 days and I put like butter under the skin and it was so moist and so crunchy at the same time crispy. It was delicious. I make a very with cornbread and chestnuts and dried apricots with sage and onions um, and celery. Very, very delicious. I'm making on one of the shows I'm doing. It's called Home and Family. It's on the Hallmark Channel, and I am doing a roast pork tenderloin stuffed with prosciutto, mozzarella, parmesan, and dried cranberries. I made a rack of lamb last night with I made a pesto out of mint and rosemary and rubbed it all over it and then cooked it with red wine and roasted potatoes and a sauce made with chanterelle mushrooms and a little bit of mint jelly, just a tiny bit, growing it up. Yeah, I'm pretty good at the holidays. Although I always am tempted to make the thing that I liked as a child, which is sweet potato casserole with marshmallows on it. Even my son is like, "Ma, that's disgusting."
No, it's the best part.
I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it.
Basically,
Yeah,
getting
I've always
things
enjoyed the
more delicious.
holidays, especially Thanksgiving, because it's all about food. You don't have to buy presents or wrap presents or, in my case, fill stockings and do all that stuff. It's just about the food, which is why I think I'm gonna get just like 2 turkey legs and make them for my husband Sam and I. So I have an excuse to make my stuffing of something with sweet potatoes and something green. I'm thinking green beans with chanterelle mushrooms.
All right. It sounds delicious. Uh, have you ever made latkes?
I have not personally made latkes. Now,
Ooh.
that was the job of my uncle Stuart. He was the king of the latkes. So I would go to their house for the Seder, and he would always have like bandages on his knuckles from making the latkes and shredding them by hand. And I enjoy the latkes very much, but I'm not drawn to make something that inflicts almost automatically some kind of real injury.
Yeah. So the worst part is the oil burns where you're just trying to get in there nice and carefully, but then it inevitably gets on your hand. It's horrible.
It does, but there's nothing better than a latke with applesauce. Like, I'm sorry, it's so freaking good. And I've been on the receiving end of latkes, but to me, it feels like not worth the risk because I would have to have a learning curve. That's something where you really need a learning curve. Like my grandmother's latkes were beautiful. They looked like they were woven. And I can't believe that I let her go without getting her chicken soup recipe and her chopped liver recipe and her borscht. She made the most incredible borscht.
What would you say was your biggest cooking disaster? Like something that just did not work or like horribly wrong?
Okay, so one time, this is so embarrassing. We were at when I grew up in New York, and my family had a house in Vermont, and we had a pond, and every year my dad, who was a mechanical engineer but had always been an academic, would design this crazy, like I called him Rube Smithberg, but it was like this Rube Goldberg system that we would drain the pond and clean the mud out and then fill it back up so that we could swim in it. And everyone sort of was hungry, so I said, "Don't you worry, I'm gonna go make lunch." And I made grilled cheese sandwiches and I made tomato soup. But I thought that the tomato soup was condensed. And so I added 3 parts of water, but it turns out it wasn't.
Oh, no.
So I essentially made tomato like hint water or something. I mean, it was so disgusting. And everyone was laughing at me because it's the most simple thing in the world to make canned tomato soup, but it's my absolute biggest debacle to date. Oh, I've burnt things. When I was teaching cooking, I brought out a pork roast that was like, 100 degrees under where it needed to be. And another chef kind of just grabbed it and took it back into the oven. I almost gave, 40 people trichinosis. But luckily someone had my back. But the most embarrassing one was really that tomato soup, because it's just like, wait, you think of yourself as a really good cook and potential chef, and you can't make canned tomato soup. That's pretty pathetic.
Yeah, that's gotta burn. Even more than latke burns. Now, it would be very remiss of me not to ask, but what was your inspiration for creating The Daily Show?
Okay, I would love to tell you, and I could if you want, I can lie, that I had this like brilliant concept, but it wasn't really like that. The way that it happened was I worked for David Letterman on Late Night with David Letterman for from 86 to 92, 6 years, which was essentially my graduate school. And then I left because I was obsessed with food, and I had been producing all the cooking demos, and I wanted to do television about food that was funny and entertainment. It would only take me another like 25 years to fulfill that dream. But so I left and shot a pilot, and the pilot ended up on the desk of a woman named Eileen Katz, who was running original programming for MTV. And she was a foodie, and she saw the tape and she liked it. And then she saw my resume, and they were developing a late night talk show. This is on MTV, and so it would have been like 93 with Jon Stewart. And so I came on, and John and I met, and we fell in professional love, and we did the show on MTV for 2 seasons, and then we got syndicated by Paramount. When it ended, the executives at MTV had moved over to Comedy Central, and I was basically recruited by a man named Doug Herzog to create a daily show for Comedy Central, a job I did not want. I was trying to have a baby. I did not want to work in strip, which is every night. I turned down the job for about 9 months. ended up selling them another idea with Liz Winstead, and we were in the Comedy Central offices. And then finally one day, Doug, kind of pushed me up against a wall, but not in a Me Too way. We were really good friends, and said, Madeleine Smithberg, what are you doing? You're in there developing a show that we can't afford to make. And I have this opportunity for you to do this daily show for me, and I'm going to give it all of my promotional budget and all of my production budget, and you won't have to do a pilot, and you can have a year. And I said, okay. And I went back in the office where Liz and my friend Elise and I were working, and I go, well, we're doing that daily show for Doug, and they got a lot of pushback. And then eventually we took all the cards for the other show down and put up the cards for this, and began this kind of potluck TV show development. Because what would happen was each new person that we would hire, either producers or writers, or really importantly, Brian Unger, who was the first correspondent, he was working at CBS News. And what had happened was we went to sleep one night and we woke up and there were like 5 24-hour news channels where there'd been none. And all of a sudden there was like HLN and CNN and Fox News and MSNBC and it was just like there wasn't enough news to film all. And then they had the news magazine. So there was Dateline, NBC was on 5 nights a week. And I always say that Stone Phillips should have had a developed created by credit and shared it with me and Liz, because he would take a story that could be told in 5 minutes and stretch it out to an hour. And that other 55 minutes would all be him looking at the camera and thinking and furrowing his brow and reacting and walking and talking. And so we were watching a lot of the people on the 24-hour news channels and on network news shows trying to make their existences legitimized. And one day we were all in a meeting and we kind of knew it was like that game Elephant, like, does it have a little skinny tail? Does it have a trunk? Does it have big weird feet with like, toenails? And you finally realize that it's an elephant. And so we knew that it was based in fact. We knew that it wasn't a sketch show. We knew that it was. And so one day we're in this meeting and we're talking about Stone Phillips and the 24-hour news of it all. And this like hush came over the room. And we all looked at each other like, are you thinking what I'm thinking? And I forget who said it, but the phrase was, why don't we pretend we're them? And it was something that was so simple and yet unlocked the key, because we realized as long as we pretended to be super serious, we could be as silly as we wanted. And so that was it. It was just playful. We were like throwing things at the wall. The first 2 years were Craig Kilborn, and it was kind of great because it really empowered our writers. It made the correspondence, and then someone sent me a tape of this guy who turned out to be Stephen Colbert, and I immediately saw the tape and was like, when can he start? And I didn't even have to have approval by the network. It was a time that does not exist in television anymore. And if it had, network executives would have killed it. That's what they like to do. That's why I'm in cooking.
The concept of like, let's pretend to be them and then make it funny. Like that, I gotta thank you for having that concept come into being, because it really changed my direction in life. I got this.
You're so welcome. It was a crazy ride, and it all sort of came to a head during the 2000 election when we had 34 days without a president, which now seems adorable.
Yeah.
But then it was a big deal. And during those 34 days, the Daily Show just became kind of what everyone was looking at, because we were the only ones that could call it like it was. And I remember the night after election night on 2000, we did this great thing where we came to the studio, and the conceit was that Stephen Colbert and John had been there for 24 hours. And I think Stephen was smoking and they were all disheveled, and that was only the first day. It was really fun.
I guess that was probably
It
a
was
real
really,
boost to the
really,
show at the
really,
time,
really fun.
because like similar to what everybody's going through now, or what everybody went through with the 2020 election, where everybody was like, I woke up today and it's still damn election day, and they just need something to laugh.
It definitely, there was a cultural shift, and suddenly, CNN was calling me to talk to me, and like, we became part of the story because no one else could say what they really thought, which is, this is a bunch of bullshit. But we could, and we could come at it from lots of different directions. So it was super, it was really, really, really invigorating, and very, made you feel good because you were doing something that you loved and felt passionate about, and the world was reacting and giving you all this great positive feedback, and the media was reacting and giving us all this great positive feedback. And then the awards started coming in. It was pretty special, heady times.
Like for the Daily Show and then all the rest of the things you worked on.
Are you there?
You've run a lot of, or you've gotten a lot of awards and stuff, but what would you say are your proudest career and personal achievements?
I would definitely say it was all that coverage in the days after the 2000 election. There's also something that if you haven't seen, you should look at, which is called The Greatest Millennium, and it was a year-end special that we did in 1999, and it's pretty brilliant. And that was really where the sort of the new Daily Show 2.0 with John would find its being and find its footing, and it was the beginning. They Might Be Giants as a house band. We decided to, instead of looking back at the year, we looked back at the entire millennium. So we did 1,000 years in a 44 minutes of content show. So it was kind of ambitious. The other things that I'm super proud of, I have a lot, but when I was at Letterman, some of the segments that I produced became magical. So things like Border Collies herding sheep, and there was one segment of an act that I had on where Dave was supposed to have a tea party with a baboon and a rhesus monkey, but the rhesus monkey hated him. And it's some of the most beautiful, pure, entertaining television you'll ever see, because he was really, really, really scared. And it just became something that ended up in every anniversary show. Now, I always say as a joke that, yes, I created the Daily Show, but when I'm gone, what I will be remembered for is the monkey in a dress on Late Night with David Letterman.
Would you say that's the craziest thing that happened during your time with Letterman, or is there something else that tops that you can talk about without getting yourself in trouble?
Oh, there was one that topped that, which was I had Kmar the Magician on, and we called him Kmar the Discount Magician. And this guy was, if you tried to write someone as a bad magician, you could never come up with anything better than him. All his props malfunctioned. He just always trouble. But one night he did this trick called Kmar incinerates David Letterman. He was Greek. And we did it for rehearsal. And my boss, who was the executive producer, Robert Morton / Morty, said, that sucks. You've got to make it bigger, 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 bigger. And when he got on the show, he poured an entire bottle of butane and put like 10 packages of flash paper into this contraption that went over Dave's head. And when he lit it on fire, the flames shot up and set his sleeves on fire. And he kept on trying to put it out, but his sleeves kept on burning. And Dave was inside of this thing and terrified. And I'm sitting, on the side of the stage going, oh my God, I'm about to disfigure our meal ticket because it was my segment and it looked like Dave was going to get really badly hurt. But he didn't. And Kmart was banned from the show, but we needed a guest. And 6 weeks later, he came back.
Well then.
You should find it. There's a guy named Don Giller, Giller, has a YouTube channel with every single Letterman show from the morning show to late night to late show. He digitized them all and it's on YouTube. He's got every single clip.
I gotta find that. Because we got one final question.
And I have to make dinner.
Yeah, so then, it's something we ask all the guests this season. Okay, so if you had a magic wand or monkey's paw or some other weird magical item that would allow you to change 2 things about the world, what would you change?
I would eliminate Donald Trump's very existence from the history books, and I would erase all the hatred that comes from his supporters.
One of our previous guests was a little bit more gruesome with that same kind of wish. Something about spontaneous combustion.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't mind that. I wouldn't mind anything incredibly painful. But my heart, in all seriousness, my heart is just broken that half of our country seems to be fine with racism and misogyny and all kinds of horrible, horrible, horrible things, and just doesn't even, it's just, I'm really disgusted by what seems to be half of the population of our country, and I'm heartbroken. And I'm glad that Biden eked it out, and I wish that Trump would just get out of there. But I'm really embarrassed and hurt by what I've seen. It's been really despicable. And I would love the coronavirus to be gone so I could see my son for Thanksgiving.
So I think that's probably a good place to wrap everything up. So thank you very much, Madeleine Smithberg, for joining us today. And everybody, we'll be right back.